And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want, again, as this is all coming in, we have just gotten an update now from the Fort Stewart Facebook page here, where we're getting these official updates coming in. And Courtney, this tracks with what you have reported from the sources you're talking to. So I want to take a beat. I want to read this out. Again, this is what we're just getting in now from Fort Stewart, that 5 soldiers were shot today in an active shooter incident at Fort Stewart. They say all the soldiers were treated on site. They've been moved to an Army community hospital nearby for further treatment. They say, importantly, there is no active threat to the community. In other words, this incident is over. Here's some of the details. That the dispatch from law enforcement came just 4 minutes before 11 a.m. Eastern, 10:56 a.m. They say the shooter was apprehended at 11:35 a.m. The lockdown happened about 9 minutes, or 8 minutes rather, after the police dispatch, the law enforcement dispatch came in here. Obviously, emergency medical personnel were dispatched. They're continuing to investigate. They are advising that they will can not be releasing more information until they get more. But there's a couple of key pieces of news that we're getting from this court. Number one, that there is no more active threat. This shooter, the suspected attacker, has been taken into custody. That happened as of just the last 60 minutes. 5 soldiers were shot and are being treated at the hospital as we speak. So, Courtney, with that, the obviously level of medical care at the Wynn Army Community Hospital is going to be obviously critical here. We do not know the condition of these soldiers either, Courtney.
Why is nobody asking how a shooter managed to open fire on a secure U.S. Army installation? The incident at Fort Stewart, Georgia, reveals a critical vulnerability that goes far beyond the headlines. This morning, 5 American soldiers were wounded in a shooting at Fort Stewart, Georgia. The suspect is in custody. We know nothing about him. And thankfully, we're praying for the swift recovery of those soldiers. But as the news cycle churns through the immediate details, the most critical question is being overlooked. It's not just what happened, but where it happened. Inside the wire on a secure United States Army base. As a Navy veteran, the first term that comes to my mind is force protection. It's one of the most sacred responsibilities of military leadership, protecting our own people, especially on home soil. Military bases are supposed to be secure compounds. You have armed gate guards, ID checks, vehicle inspections, restricted areas, and a command structure designed to respond to threats instantly. These aren't soft targets like a shopping mall. So when an event like this occurs, it points to one of 2 catastrophic failures. Either our external security was breached, or the threat was already inside the perimeter, an insider threat. The mainstream media will show you the flashing lights and give you the raw numbers, but they won't connect the dots for you on what this means for our overall military readiness and the safety of the men and women who volunteer to defend this country. Are our protocols outdated? Are we failing to identify warning signs within our own ranks? Some of these social media experts. Is our focus so much on threats from overseas that we become vulnerable right here at home? This is a statement from the governor of Georgia, Governor Brian Kemp. As we remain in close contact with law enforcement on the ground, Marty, the girls, and I are saddened by today's tragedy at Fort Stewart. We're keeping the victims, their families, and all those who answer the call to serve in our hearts and prayers. And we ask that Georgians everywhere doing the same. Now, a couple of the comments, and the very second comment I see here, why aren't soldiers allowed to carry their weapons on base? The shooter would have been stopped immediately. That is a question that I have asked many times. These men and women in uniform are trained to protect themselves, military property, and others. But yet here in the United States, on their own home soil, they're the most vulnerable. Is that something that needs to be changed? Should military men and women in uniform on military bases be armed so they can stop a threat much quicker and not rely on calling 911? Imagine you're some decorated military member, war hero, combat experience, and you've got to hide in a locked room, barricade the door, hide under a desk, and call 911? Think about that. This isn't, there are things that need to be changed here.
Breaking news just coming in. Fort Stewart in Georgia is locked down for an active shooter situation. This is according to a Fort Stewart police spokesperson. Let's go live to CNN correspondent Isabel Rosales. What are you learning, Isabel?
Hey, Pam, we're working to gather details, but of course the situation still breaking, unfolding, very active. Here's what we do have, that Fort Stewart is under a lockdown. This is per the U.S. Army Fort Stewart police spokesperson that confirmed to CNN, quote, there is an active shooter, but did not give additional details as to the status of the shooter, how many shooters there could be. No additional details on that. Now, according to the Fort Worth Facebook page, casualties have been reported and the situation is ongoing. Now, Fort Stewart, trains and deploys active and reserve Army units. This is home to the 3rd Infantry Division, and it's just 40 miles to the southwest of Savannah, Georgia. So still a very quickly unfolding situation. We're working to get more details, Pam.
Yeah.
So they deploy men and women into combat zones much more dangerous than Savannah, Georgia, or not far from Savannah, Georgia. This incident isn't just about a local Georgia news story. This is a national security issue. It is about a fundamental breakdown in a system designed to be impenetrable. We need to demand answers, not just about the shooter, but about the systemic vulnerabilities this attack has exposed. Because if a soldier isn't safe on their own base, where can they be?
Let's bring in retired NYPD Lieutenant Joe Cardonale. Lieutenant, thank you so much for joining us today. What kind of questions should we be asking at this point as we wait for more information on the active shooter situation at an Army base?
No, I think the main focus right now is the lockdown. I think, if I'm correct, I believe that's about 5 counties at this base, abuts, counties that go through it. It's the largest installation east of the Mississippi for the 3rd Infantry. So that's going to be, it's a large base. It's so many counties. I think what you should be looking for is where they want the outside intervention to come in with this. They have to contain everything from within the base, get everything shut down there first, and then bring everybody in as needed. We don't know what the incident's all about. We don't know whether it's an outside person. It probably is somebody from within the base, as we have seen in the past. But I think right now, until we get some more information, we need to just make sure that whole base is in the lockdown mode that it should be in.
So, Lieutenant, according to the Army websites, now to your point, the Fort Stewart Hunter Army Airfield employs over 25,000 people. Of them, over 21,000 full-time soldiers that are stationed there. Now, as we learned from the original press release from Fort Stewart, there's a section that is currently remaining on lockdown while the rest of the base is open. So how difficult is that to lock down a portion, and what does that look like for the rest of the base as it's open if law enforcement and emergency services are trying to get and arrive to the point of the impact there?
Was this a planned attack on a U.S. military installation? Was this a dry run? Time will tell. We're going to find out more information about who the shooter was. We're going to find out their motives. We're going to find out their methods. If it's someone within the base, then that's even more of a security risk. We all know that there are people in our United States military that probably don't agree with some of the ideas and values within the United States. We know that. If you aren't aware of that, you probably should be. You need to remain alert and stay vigilant. And if you have family there at Fort Stewart, Godspeed to them. God bless you and God bless America. This is the Ben Dykes Show. We'll be back soon.